Welcome to this CommunityViz video tutorial. This tutorial is about WebShots. In this video, we'll start with looking at WebShots on the web, and then we'll go back and look at how they were set up using the WebShots Wizard. So let's get started with viewing WebShots on the web. First, let's look at the CommunityViz analysis I'm working with. This is the new city center analysis. It has a map, it has assumptions, indicators, charts, and other familiar CommunityViz components. Now what I've done is use the WebShots Wizard to export this to the web, and what that looks like is this. You can see I have my browser open, and I'm looking at a page called New City Center Alternatives. This is an interactive map, the same one I was just looking at. These are some of the assumptions in my CommunityViz analysis. And in this window, which I can detach and put over to the side, I have charts, indicators, and a legend for the map. Now let's look at some of those components in a little more detail. You can see up here on the left I have two modes. There's a slideshow mode and an explore mode. In the slideshow mode, I can step through different saved views. As I do, you'll notice the charts are changing, the map may be changing, and these previously set assumption values are changing. What's going on? Well, there's a description telling me about each slide. This is a nice way to present a story to viewers of the WebShots scene. There's also an Explore mode. In the Explore mode, I can decide on my own what I want to look at. I can switch between scenarios, and I can change assumptions one at a time. For instance, if I change this assumption, the charts change accordingly. Notice that if I change a different assumption, the first one reverts to its default value. So when I say change one assumption at a time, all the others are set to a default. Also available in WebShots is a help system and links to any reports I may have created in CommunityViz. These open up in HTML and are stored with the WebShots publication. So that's a little bit about the WebShots Viewer. Now let's look at how I set this up from the CommunityViz desktop. You can find the WebShots Wizard used to set up WebShots in the Scenario 360 presentation toolbar. Its icon looks like a small camera. The wizard is also available from the Scenario 360 toolbar drop-down menu, Presentation, WebShots Wizard. When you first open the wizard, it gives you a reminder that your map and assumption settings and chart colors should all be set the way you want them to appear in your final presentation on the web. It asks you which scenarios you want to include, and then it asks you this important question, which is which 5 variable assumptions to use on the web. If you'll recall from the WebShots Viewer, some of the assumptions are variable, others are simply displaying static values. You can choose up to 5 variable ones here. Once you do that, it does some work and calculates all the components that are related to those assumptions. And if you choose, you can simply include all of those in the rest of your report, save you some steps in entering data. For each of the assumptions you've chosen, it also asks you for up to 5 discrete values for that assumption. Here, for example, my timescope time assumption in my regular analysis varies 1 year at a time from 2009 to 2039. For purposes of WebShots, I need to choose just 5 discrete steps. I chose these multiples of 5, and that's what's displayed in my WebShots application. It asks me that for all of my assumptions. Then it asks me about slideshow and explore modes and which components I'd like to include in each of those. It also asks me for slideshow order. And then it asks me again about assumptions, this time if I want to include any assumptions that weren't variable to begin with. It asks me the same question on any indicators I'd like to include, any charts I'd like to include. And then it gets to this section, which is important. It's called the description section. And for this, these are the text explanations that will appear in WebShots. It's important to remember that when somebody's looking at your analysis on the web, you won't be there to explain it. So it's a good idea to have good, clear explanations for each of your components. If those aren't already available within your analysis, you can add them here. You may want to modify some of the wording that's in your analysis for use on the web as well. Once you've filled out all of those, it asks you if you would like to link to any reports. These would be reports that you generated through the Scenario 360 Reports Generator. And finally, for some publishing information. This is title and author. You can include a graphic if you want in the upper right. This is an important question. Output map image quality. The map that you see in WebShots isn't a live map, it's actually an image. The larger you make that image, the higher resolution the image, the nicer it looks, the better it looks when it's zoomed in, but the larger the end file size. So you're giving some options there to decide. Once you've done all that, you click Finish, and the wizard spends some time collecting all this data. It collects images of your charts, it does all the math, and it wraps up a fairly large file. This may take several minutes to generate, but when it does, it stores it in your analysis. This is my analysis in CV Files, New City Center, a special folder called WebShots. And within that folder, you'll find some other subfolders containing images, and this file called webshots.html. If you double-click that, you'll be able to see what the WebShots look like as a preview. It'll just open in your local browser. Once you're satisfied with everything you have, give this entire folder to your web administrator for publishing in your final website. Thank you for watching this CommunityViz video tutorial. For more video tutorials and CommunityViz resources, please visit the website.